Good morning.
Good morning.
We'll open up with the word of prayer. Dear Lord, thank you very much for today. Thank you, Lord, for all your many blessings. Thank you for a group of brothers and sisters here that have received the truth and believe on the truth. And we gather here in the name of the truth, Lord, in your name. Thank you for everything that you allow us to have here with our church. We ask you now to bless this message. Help me to preach it, Lord. I plead the blood of Jesus over my life. And I plead the blood of Jesus over my sin. And I pray that you help me to deliver this message. I pray that everybody who hears this message might be fed through it. And we pray for the rest of the services today and fellowship. Pray for everybody that's traveling, sick, ill. Lift them all up to you, Lord. Pray all this now in the name of Jesus Christ, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So today I have yet another controversial subject amongst Christians, with most putting emphasis on their emotions and not regarding what God has already said on the matter. It seems to be the common theme of what has to do with some of these messages that I'm bringing. And I would say to be careful not to be led by the flesh, which is your emotions. Don't be led by that, because your flesh and your emotions want nothing to do with the truth. It wants to seek its own comfort, its own pleasure, and everything that has to do with the spirit, the flesh wants nothing to do with it. And we as saved individuals are living in the spirit now. We don't walk in the flesh. And I would say Romans 8:14 says that the sons of God are led by the Spirit of God. John 4:24 says that God is a spirit, and those that worship him in spirit and in truth. So we can glorify God by believing what he said and believing what the truth is. So when we look through the different dispensations, the dispensation of human government was started in Genesis 9. And we see in this dispensation the direct commandment from God to institute something called capital punishment. It's something that God says he requires blood for blood, in other words, in some cases here. And we can look at Genesis chapter 9. We can open up there for our first reference today. Start my clock. Try to keep it under an hour this time. We went a little over last time. Genesis chapter 9, verse 5. We'll start there. It says, "And surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast will I require it, and at the hand of man. At the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God made he man." So we see, by man shall his blood be shed. So this wasn't told to just one person directly. Hey, you're responsible for making sure that justice is served. This is by man. So this was a mandate given to man, that collectively man was needing to fulfill this requirement from the Lord. That if a man were to, in other words, in essence, to murder somebody, that their blood would be required by God. And that is something we call today is capital punishment. So we see God's commandments, his rules, his laws, they're always backed by something that's practical. It's never something that, people say God's an ogre, he's just looking for you to mess up one time so he can hammer you on the head. And even if that were true, God has all we really deserve is not even one chance. We're born filthy sinners, and that's all we really amount to in our flesh. That's all we can amount to. Thank God we're saved from our flesh, as we went over last week. But even if that was true, if God was an ogre, even if he gave you one chance, that's one more chance than we deserve, that he's given us through Jesus Christ, and withholding his judgment every day, every time we do sin, that's more than we do deserve. So I say all this to say that God does all what he does, and his laws, his commandments are for a reason. And we're going to go and get into this reason later. I kind of have a little bit of a part 2 to this message, and we'll see what the reasoning is. But every single law, commandment, even if you don't recognize it, and I'm not going to get into some examples, I might not finish in time today, but even the Levitical law where you see things with mixing the wool and the cotton, even modern science today has some reasons that, why you don't do those kinds of things. So this is one of those, this is what we'll find today, and it's my objective to prove to you through the Bible today that this shedding of blood from people who do shed blood, it's backed for a reason. So we'll go now a couple chapters back to Genesis chapter 4. Genesis chapter 4 and verse 9. It says, "And the Lord said unto Cain, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand." So we can see here, everybody knows that Cain killed Abel, was the first murder in the Bible. And we can see from the text here that his brother Abel, his blood cried unto him from the ground. And Cain received a curse. He received a curse from this. And we can go and see we'll turn there to Matthew chapter 23, a reference to this here in regards to the blood of Abel. So Matthew chapter 23, and we'll start at verse 34. Jesus was speaking here, and he said, "Wherefore, behold, I sent unto you prophets, and wise men, and scribes, and some of them ye shall kill and crucify, and some of them shall ye scourge in your synagogues, and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, son of Barachias, whom he slew between the temple and the altar." So here Jesus was saying that the blood of righteous Abel. So Abel was righteous. We could tell by what he offered as a sacrifice unto the Lord, and the Lord was pleased with what Abel had to offer. And it's not to get too much into this one instance here, but we can see that the blood of the righteous and the innocent, it can return upon the wicked, those who are manslayers, as a form of a curse. We'll go on from here. We make a clear distinction between dispensations about what God's expectations are for us, how he deals with us, how he deals with sin, how salvation can be obtained. But there are certain carryovers from dispensation to dispensation, such as the attributes of God. Even though we're living now in the age of grace, we can see grace throughout all the dispensations. We can see God's expectations for justice, as we see in human government, the age of human government. The Lord has made it clear what he expects from governments to uphold. And now, even though we're living in the age of grace, we are still subject to governments. And even Paul has a lot to write about what the governments are, what their role is, what our role is in regards to the government. A characteristic of God that never changes and never will between all the ages that will have passed and are to come is that he's righteous. The righteousness of God supersedes time, surpasses it. So going past the dispensation of human government, we can see that capital punishment was also given in the dispensation of the law. Moses' law also instituted capital punishment. We can see the only Bible that someone who opposes capital punishment, because I did say it is a controversial subject amongst Christians, and maybe you never thought about it before, maybe it's only came up one time and you haven't really put much thought into it, but when the subject does come up, a lot of people take the stance of the soft, effeminate Jesus stance that, oh, you can't do that, you got to turn the other cheek. But you can see in one age it was that. I'm going to prove to you now in the law it is this, and we'll go on from there. But So the only Bible that someone who opposes capital punishment will ever quote is Exodus chapter 20, verse 13, which is the sixth commandment from the Ten Commandments. It says, "Thou shalt not kill." So people use that as their poster child. Oh, thou shalt not kill. So this verse is used just like the other poster child verse. I say poster child because it's always the go-to. Hey, let's run to this verse about the "don't judge me" crew. The "don't judge me" people like to use the Matthew 7:1. Don't judge. That's the verse that they like to use. But just like Matthew 7:1, if you go on to reading the context of what that verse says, you'll find that the case that you're making is not the case that God is putting forward when you read the whole counsel of God. And you can save yourself from looking like a Bible corrector, with just going on and reading around it and not forming your own agenda, not trying to have what you want to put forward. So we can see that we'll turn now to Exodus. Go to Exodus chapter 21. And we'll see what the Lord says about capital punishment in the law. So Exodus chapter 21, verse 12 says, "He that smiteth a man so that he die shall be surely put to death." So we know that the law is given in Exodus chapter 20. Now we read the context in chapter 21. What do you do with that here? It says that he who smiteth a man that he die shall surely be put to death. So the law is requiring the death penalty be put in place for somebody who is a murderer. We can read on a little bit more. Same chapter, but verse 15 says, "He that smiteth his father or his mother shall be surely put to death." So just smiting them, I don't even think that means that for them to die. Verse 12 says, "So that he die," but you strike your mother or father, you should be put to death. Verse 17, forget about striking them. It says, "He that curseth his father or mother shall surely be put to death." So we don't live under the law where we practice these kinds of things right here, but we can see what God's expectations are and how seriously He takes certain things. We can go on to other contexts where it even says later on, stealing, kidnapping, selling a man, which is selling a slave. It's also punishable by the death penalty. Solomon wrote in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 3, that there is a time to kill. And I'm not getting too crazy into the killing aspect of it, but just to prove to you that the Bible does say that there are certain times where this is something that should be practiced. That's for a Jew under the law, obviously. We're not under the law. I'm not calling for a Christian crusade to go on to killing, people who break the law or who do these things that are written in the law. It's not what's going on here. I'll take you to one last place that does clear up, even if that's not clearing up enough for you, the sixth commandment, "Thou shalt not kill." Let's go to Matthew chapter 19. Let's turn back to Matthew. Matthew chapter 19 in verse 18, Jesus here speaking again. The verse says, "He saith unto him, which?" Jesus said, "Thou shalt do no murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness." So Jesus is listing off some of the 10 commandments here. And Jesus said, "Thou shalt do no murder," in reference to that commandment, "Thou shalt not kill." So people say, "Oh, thou shalt not kill." That means you don't kill at all. Don't shed blood at all. But Jesus is referring to this commandment as "Thou shalt not murder." So that commandment is for murdering, because obviously God does not contradict Himself, and He instituted the death penalty for murderers. So, and in other cases, as we read in Exodus chapter 21. So it's safe to say that it's not in reference to what people try to make it into being. So, why is capital punishment so important? What is the reason for instituting the death penalty? What does the lack of following through with God's will look like today? So let's go and look at what the New Testament says. Today we have governments that are in control of the world's population, and God has shown us in the past, like I mentioned before, what He does expect for human government to do, what they need to fulfill. And the New Testament also talks about, Paul talks about in Romans chapter 13, verse 1, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there's no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. So God puts all these governments and all these people who are in power, God sets them up. And if we read a couple verses down, verse 3, Romans 13:3, says, for rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. So in essence, Paul was saying that God puts these governments in power, and the role of these governments are to keep evil at bay, essentially. It's to keep the evil doers punished, keep them from having the power to do evil. And unfortunately, we see the erosion of government nowadays, but nonetheless, God says that these higher powers are put in place by Him. So, and we can also see in verse 4, one more verse later, for He is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for He beareth not the sword in vain. For He is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. So, if governments were following the Bible, they would see that there's a clear cutout case for capital punishment that God does expect for governments to uphold. And we do have capital punishment offenses that the law does recognize nowadays. And I'll get onto the statistics later, but in the last 20-something years, there's about 2,000, a little over 2,000 inmates on death row. I'll get into all that later. I'll get into it now. Today, there's about 20,000 to 25,000 murders that are ruled homicides a year. And like I said, there's about 2,000 prisoners on death row. So there's not a proportional kind of justice being had there. And the prisoners that are on death row, they're on there for a while before we have law and order here, before all their hearings and their appeals are heard, before the punishment's actually delivered. And I think that there are some people that are innocent. There are people that have been exonerated from death row that they're proven innocent. And it's not to say that because some innocent people do end up in these systems that we should remove these systems. There's systems in place that it has nothing to do with the system. It's about the people that are running the system. So just like there's the argument for guns. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. You don't remove guns because there's evil, wicked people using them to do wickedness. You don't remove cars from the road because there's people that are going to go get drunk today and get behind a wheel and go take out a family who driving the wrong way on the highway. You're not going to ban cars for that reason. So we're not going to ban capital punishment because some wicked doers try to weaponize it and try to put somebody to death that doesn't deserve it for their own gain, whatever it might be. So I don't think because of that should be removed. And I think there's a clear case to argue that, but I'm not here to argue that today. So how does this all fit together? We're talking about capital punishment. What does this have to do with anything? So I would like to prove to you today how this spilling of innocent blood, spilling of the righteous blood, it defiles the land. And we'll see in the Bible what the defilement of the land looks like, how to reverse the defilement of the land. And it might not tie together until I get through a couple points here. So I'm going to run through some points, and hopefully by that time it'll look clear to you. So let's go back to Genesis, and we'll look at chapter 3. Genesis chapter 3, verse 17. The Bible says, "And unto Adam he said, Because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it, cursed is the ground for thy sake, and sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life." So we can see this is the first instance of it, and we can see more instances of it, that on the account of sin is the earth cursed. The earth is cursed based on the sin of man. And we can go on to see in other instances of how the earth is cursed and what that looks like. But I'll say to you this: we know, even if it's just from Genesis, that the earth is cursed. And even if we just took that and left it at that, we know that it's because of man that the earth is cursed. And we can see now there's the whole topic, the whole thing about it used to be global warming. Now it's climate change. We hear about it day in, day out. You know, the ice caps are melting. There's floods here. There's droughts here. There's fires there. You know, it's your fault. You don't drive an electric vehicle. You know, even though if you really go and look into it, electric vehicles produce just as much pollution. But you know, the wicked are always going to try to push their case. You know, you give anybody a cause, even if they're upside down, sideways, and blind, you know, they're going to argue their case. And that's what we see today. We see all sorts of wickedness, and they're pleading their case for why their case is just, and why we should see things, you know, from their point of view, and what about this, what about that. So all sorts of wickedness is, you know, flesh just tries to justify itself, and it's your fault for, you know, even though it doesn't make sense, for driving a gas or diesel car. It's your fault for eating meat. It's your fault for you know, eating cows when cows produce all sorts of methane. And you know, it's not to get into that, but I think God has a way of recycling you know, the air and all that in the earth. This isn't that message, but you know, it used to be global warming, and now when it gets too cold, you know, apparently it was too cold now, and that doesn't fit the narrative of what they say about global warming. So now it's climate change, and we see all sorts of this. And you know, I could go on all day here with this list, but I think you get the point. You know, the Bible does say it's not your fault. Well, it's not your fault for doing these things, but the Bible does say it is your fault, not for doing these things that I was mentioning, but it says it is your fault for other reasons. And it's reasons that the crew that's pushing that narrative I was talking about, you know, the climate change narrative, they're not gonna, they're right that it is your fault, but they're not gonna name the real reason why it's your fault. The real reason why it's your fault is because of the defilement of the land. Look in Leviticus with me. Let's turn to Leviticus now. Leviticus chapter 18. Leviticus chapter 18 in verse 25 says, "And the land is defiled, therefore I do visit the iniquity thereof upon it, and the land itself vomited out her inhabitants." So we see here that the land is defiled, and because the land is defiled, the land is vomiting out its inhabitants. It's purging these people who are defiling it. It's wanting to get rid of it. So, you know, these people talk about Mother Earth and all that, and it's not really that. It's the earth is cursed, and we can see in the Bible that the earth does groan, and you know, the earth is groaning for the return of the Savior. But we can see that the earth wants to purge itself from all these things. And there's another list here. If we go up a few verses, starting in verse 20, we can see that there's a list here of perversions, of sexual perversions. We can see in verse 21, passing through the fire to Molech. That's child sacrifice there. That's something, there's nothing new under the sun. There's child sacrifice back, a couple thousand years ago. The same is true today. There's child sacrifice. And this is part of the list that God is saying is defiling the land. And the land is wanting to purge out, to vomit out the inhabitants because of this. So what do we see today that we call climate change? We see droughts, we see fires, we see floods, we see all sorts of things that the land is saying, hey, get out of here, you people are defiling me. Get off the land, I'm vomiting you out. So we can see, we'll see later, but in order to not be spewed out, there's something that you can do to not be spewed out of the land. And obviously it's not defile it, but there's something in place even if the land is defiled. So we know that modern science has talked about the San Andreas fault for a long time. If you know about it, that's a huge fault line that's in California. And for years and years and years, they've been talking about how one day there's going to be this cataclysm, this catastrophic earthquake, and California might even split off from the continental United States. And science is recognizing this. And I saw an article here when I was preparing my message from CNN. It says, this part of the United States is at highest risk for a devastating tsunami. And they're recognizing a new fault line. It says here that a catastrophic earthquake and tsunami are inevitable for the coast of the Pacific Northwest. So we know it's not just no longer California, it's also, it's Oregon and Washington. That whole coast, we know it's what goes on there. It's a very secular, perverted, progressive land that promotes all sorts of wickedness, and they're at the forefront of it. And I'm not going to read you the whole article, but it goes on to say no one is ready for this. So it sounds like, it sounds to me like they're not going to go on and admit that they know what's going on, but they're going to try to prepare you for what's going to happen. They know that their own defilement is going to cause the land to vomit them out one day. But they're going to say, it's for an underlying reason that's pre-existing that you can't do anything about. It's just something that's going to happen. A huge magnitude 9.0 earthquake and 20-foot tsunami is going to come hit the coast. We're not going to tell you why. We're just going to tell you it's going to happen. It's inevitable. And it goes on. The last line of the article says the problem is nobody knows how much time remains. So they are recognizing that this thing is coming, along with that San Andreas fault, and they're not going to tell you why it is. We can hear in the Bible why it is. I read to you some verses here. I haven't tied it all in fully yet, but it tells you why that land is trying to vomit it out. California's got the fires going on every year. It's got the droughts. Let's read some Bible here to figure out why that is. America doesn't have its own special dispensation about, when these things happen, everybody's going to say, oh, here's the Great Tribulation. It's coming. It's coming. Well, no, it could just be that America's going to go the course that the rest of the world has gone, that it had its rise and they kicked God out, and now it's going to turn into a third world country. Maybe it's going to have some terrible war. God forbid. The prayer is that America does get right, and that we get saved from these things that can and will happen to it. But just because these things happen doesn't mean that the Great Tribulation is beginning. It's just we're another nation. We're as a drop in the bucket, as the Bible says. I'm paraphrasing, but we're just but a drop. We're just another nation. We can see in Numbers. We'll turn there because I have a couple references to make. We'll start in Numbers chapter 13, And I'm almost done tying this together here. Bear with me just a little longer. Numbers chapter 13 in verse 17 says, "And Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, and said unto them, Get you up this way southward, and go up into the mountain, and see the land what it is, and the people that dwelleth therein, whether they be strong or weak, few or many." And we can go on to read what the spies came back with, what their report was. Their report of the land of Canaan, the promised land, the land that God promised unto Abraham, that it was going to be plentiful. We can go on, we'll hold our place here. We'll go to Jeremiah, but hold your place in Numbers. But we can see that the spies came back and they said, hey, there's these grape clusters that you need a pole and 2 men to carry these grapes. They're so massive. It's flowing with milk. It's flowing with honey. It seems like a very fertile, very beautiful, very luscious land. And if we know what it looks like today, if you've ever seen pictures of the Holy Land of Israel, if you've ever been there, it's a desert now. It's not some pristine, beautiful oasis. Now it looks just like a desert. Hold your place in Numbers, and let's go to Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter 2. Chapter 2. Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 7. The Bible says, "And I have brought you into a plentiful country to eat the fruit thereof and the goodness thereof. But when ye entered, ye defiled my land, and made mine heritage an abomination." So any Bible student, you can start putting together some things here. There's key words that always ring a bell. You hear about abomination, you know what God likens abomination onto. It's this perversion. It's the sin of Sodom. It's what the Sodomites were practicing. We see here, we tie it in with defilement. We can see what defilement does to a land. And God says, this land was plentiful, and you defiled it. So let's go to Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 8. And we can read of some of the things that did defile the land. It says, "And I saw, when for all the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, I had put her away, and given her a bill of divorce. Yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, and went and played the harlot also." So this is talking about how Israel and Judah, and God likens this what was talked about here about adultery to idol worship. It's a theme in the Bible, and it was because of their idol worship that God had to put them away. And by putting them away, if you can connect the Bible here, that's when they were taken captive. That's when the enemies came in, and God said, all right, you guys aren't going to be defended by me. They're going to go in there, they're going to slaughter your families, and they're going to take away, what remains of you. And, your nation's going to be no more. It's going to kind of cease to exist for a time here. And that was because of what we read. They defiled the land and through their idol worship. And God even made an example with one of the minor prophets, Hosea. God said, hey, you're going to go marry a harlot. And this was to emphasize how God sees Israel, how he sees the Jews, how they are unfaithful. Just as Hosea's wife that he was told to marry was not faithful to him. It was through this idol worship that they kept running back to that, God said, hey, you defiled the land through this. Even when Israel had the kings, these kings would go and make the groves unto Baal, and they would make the high places, and it was all this idol worship that was happening. And make no mistake about it, even though nowadays we don't set up, a statue, even though there are statues, you got the Buddha and all that, but even if it's not a statue, an icon of wood and stone, there's a lot of things that can still be an idol nowadays, that and there's plenty of them, that America has defiled itself nowadays with. An idol is anything that comes between you and God. So anything that you go and put in the place of God that is going to take God's time, that's going to take your attention from God, that you're going to run to instead of God, that's an idol. And it can come in many different forms. Not to get too far into it, but there's plenty of idol worship prevalent today in America. So I said hold your place in Numbers. Let's flip back to it. And let's see if we can tie this together now. Numbers chapter 35. Numbers chapter 35, verse 33. The Bible says, "So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it." So this sounds like what we were reading in Exodus chapter 21, that blood is required from somebody who spills blood. The land is defiled, and the defilement cannot be cleaned unless the blood of the person who is defiling the land is shed. That's a case for a capital punishment right there. We can only maybe look at one type of this shedding of blood, which is homicide. Like I read the statistic, 20 to 25,000 a year. But what's even more prevalent than that is over 600,000 cases of abortion per year. That puts a shadow on homicides, but that's child sacrifice. That's passing through the fire into Molech that we read about in the Old Testament, that obviously was an abomination to God. And we can read about what abominations, what God does to an abomination. He takes these kinds of things seriously. And to this I'll say, Bible believers are environmentalists. A Bible believer will say, hey, what does God say about it? And follow it. And it says, shed the blood to, rid the defilement of the land and cleanse the land. And that's what I'm here to you to prove today. So I'll say, we are the real environmentalists. It's not driving an electric vehicle. It's not, not eating cows. It's not any of these things that's going to, save the environment. The Bible tells you how you're going to save the environment, what I'm reading to you here today. And, we read about abominations. So, we're in the month of June, and it's another Sunday, and, it's another perfect time to preach what's in the spotlight. What's in the limelight right now is this, the spotlight on this abomination of pride and it being celebrated. Well, they want to put the spotlight on themselves, but they want to use this fake light. Let's shine a real light on it. The entrance of thy word is light. The Bible is the real light. So if they want the light shine on them, let's shine the real light on them. Their perversion is increasingly prevalent. It's praised, it's promoted, it's protected. It's something that's put in your face. It's something that says, you have to accept it. We can read what God thinks about this. The first time that sinners is mentioned in the Bible is about Sodom. And we can see how seriously God takes what this sin is. Let's go to Genesis chapter 13. Genesis 13, chapter 13, verse 13. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. So they were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. This wickedness that they were practicing, we could read about it. There's several mentions of it throughout the Bible. It's where we get the word sodomites from. It's not gay. They hijacked the word gay. Gay means happy and merry. It's not homosexual. That's just scientific scientific way of putting it. That we're just classifying them and putting them into a box. They're sodomites. Sodomites is what the Lord calls them. It means that they're wicked. It means that they practice abominations. And we can see that what the Lord did to that land where these abominations were practiced. We see how the land was cleansed. The land was cleansed through the Lord raining fire and brimstone upon the land and wiping them all out, that their blood was spilled. And I guess that might have cleansed that land there because they were all wiped out. All their sin stopped there. The sin of sodomy, didn't stop there. It was unfortunately continued, and it lives on today. But we could see just how seriously God took that back then. Just because we're in an age of grace right now, where God doesn't rain down the fire and brimstone, like I mentioned before, just because He doesn't hit you on the head the moment you do something, doesn't mean it's not serious. You got to take these things serious, because God takes them serious, even though He gives us grace now, and He'll give you 10, 100, 1,000 chances. That's way more than we deserve to get things right. But make no mistake about it, God does not have to do that. He can, there's a sin unto death that God says. God can take you out at any moment. There's no guarantee that you're gonna live through your sins to get it right someday. And that's particularly true to the Sodomite group. And we know that the Sodomites out there after children, as Pastor says all the time, they don't reproduce, they recruit. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to desensitize these children. They're trying to bring them into the school, these Sodomites, to read books to the children, so they see it and they're not afraid of it. They think it's just something normal. They're trying to desensitize these children, so that one day when they grow up, that there's no fight left in them to say, hey, just live with it, just coexist with it. I was talking last week about how if there's enough of these people get together, they'll go and make a law, because now the common consensus is, now everybody agrees that this is fine, or this is the truth, or this is okay. And what we see is that these laws are being made because there's nobody to stand against it, there's nobody to oppose it. And once a whole generation of children are brought up to be desensitized to this, what's going to happen? The natural thing's going to happen. They're going to cave in. They're not going to have a fight. And I see it at my workplace. It's people that say, oh, hey, as long as they're not putting it in your face. There's people that are like that at my work. And I discussed it with somebody who's a Christian, and they said, oh, as long as they're not putting it in your face, I'm fine with it. It's not like that other guy that used to work here who, he put it in your face. So as long as it's not in your face, it's okay. And no, that's somebody who's desensitized. That's somebody who's watched too much Hollywood, too much news. They're compromising. They're just taking what they can out of a situation. They don't want to stand against it and preach against it as the Lord would have you to do. So, the Bible says, Jesus was saying in Matthew 18 verse 6, it's better for somebody to have a millstone tied around their neck and be drowned. Better for them, not better for the world, although it is better for the world, but better for them to be drowned than to go on and offend a child, the Lord says. So I think we can see how the Lord, how seriously He takes the sin of sodomy. And this is something that is staining our land today. It's defiling our land. California is an epicenter of it. And just like, ground zero when a missile strikes, here it is. It's in the news. They're trying to prepare ground zero for, the catastrophic earthquake and tsunami that's going to happen one day. They know where ground zero is going to be. It's going to be there. And they talk about, I know another one. It's another fault line. I think it's in like the Philadelphia, New York area, another, liberal land where all these things are praised and promoted. They're talking about that there's a fault line there that's overdue by a couple hundred years for a big earthquake, and it could happen at any moment. So they're preparing these places that it's like, hey, it's going to happen here or both at the same time. Why not get right? Why not get right? And the righteous have almost entirely turned over the world to the wicked doers, and the world is decaying at an increasing rate. It's getting faster and faster. That's why it's all these people crying on television about how the climate is changing and how we're reaching DEF CON whatever, about how it's soon going to be unreversible. They have their own clock. We're in hour 23 and the 45-minute where when the clock strikes midnight, it's going to be too late to turn back. That's just a knockoff of the Bible. We're in that last couple seconds before the Lord comes back right now, and they're going to try to flip it upside down and not call it what it is, and say it's because of the environment. It's because of what you're doing to the environment. It's because you're drinking through a plastic straw that the earth is going to get a huge earthquake and a whole bunch of nonsense. It's not that. I promise you that it's not that, because I can see in the Bible what it is. So I can be very bold to say I can promise you that. So what's the importance of me in all of this? How do I matter in all this? How do you matter in all this? It could be because that there's God-fearing people that still exist. That that final thread that we're hanging on by is we're still not wiped off. United States. We're not wiped off this continent. Maybe because there's still a remnant that exists, and it could be that we're not unraveling completely, even though it looks like we're going down real quick. We haven't hit rock bottom at this moment that I'm speaking. Noah was cleansed, was saved from the cleansing of the earth. He was a preacher of righteousness. And God said, hey, build an ark. You're not going to be part of this cleansing that's going to happen on this earth. The whole world was increasingly wicked at the time. And God said, all right, I'm going to cleanse the earth by your guys' death, by drowning you out. And that's how that happened back then. And Noah wasn't a part of it. As were the days of Noah, Luke chapter 17, verse 26. When everyone was wicked and God cleansed the earth, so shall these days be today. There you have another, segue into preaching righteousness. Even though nobody got saved from Noah's preaching, saved for his family. There's no outsiders that got saved, but he still preached that righteousness. I think just as we're in the days of Noah, we should be doing today. We should be preaching this righteousness. We should be standing against what's promoted and protected and praised, this pride that's, abomination, that's defiling the land. I think we should be standing against it. We have a lot of cases right now of, it's hard to be somebody who doesn't take a defeatist kind of mentality. You're saying it's all going down all around me. What can I do? Well, it's not too late to turn around. Maybe we can turn around, but recently in the news, there's a lot of things that are happening, a lot of developments. Louisiana made a bill to display the 10 Commandments in all classrooms. That's not going to save the country alone, but it was the removal of these things out of the classrooms and out of the courtrooms and out of the public places that did go to make the product of society what it is today. People aren't God-fearing because the fear of God isn't being instilled; it's not being taught. But how can we? We're not called to gain ground, but we're called to occupy till God comes. We're called to stand in the gap. We're called to do these kinds of things. But if we could get these kinds of things back, maybe it might please God enough to bring some things back that we've lost. It's Louisiana putting these 10 Commandments back in all the classrooms. Tennessee is trying to pass a bill for 30 days of fasting and prayer beginning July 1st. So after this Pride Month is done away with, he's saying, hey, let's all come together as a state and let's pray and let's fast and let's try to get God's favor again. Let's try to heal our land, essentially, because that sounds like somebody who knows what the defilement is doing to the land and wanting to reverse it. And it's not to get all this whole raw kind of heaven on earth, kingdom of heaven and thing going. It's not that. It's but these are proper steps to take, and I'll take it. Tennessee passed another bill to, like we're talking about today. I just was reading this last week, to use, not very strong language, but to use, they're going to put the death penalty in place for child predators, people who act upon the action of preying on children. It's now a punishment that's punishable by capital punishment. And that's the right way to go right there. That's the right thing to do. So I applaud the whoever was involved, the governor, and however that works, their house, that all voted on that bill to be put into place. I think the rest of the nation should step up and follow suit. More of these things should be happening. Is there an ulterior motive? Maybe. It could be something else. There always could be something else. But I'm going to play the side of the optimist and say, hey, we're going in the right direction with those kinds of moves. Another one, Oklahoma, in last June, I believe it was, signed a bill to allow public school students early release. I think it was 3 times a week. They're allowed to leave school early, public school early, to go and attend a religious class. Doesn't matter what class it is, but you can go and have a credit for leaving school and going to, hear preaching. That's something good right there. It's not to preach against the public school system, but we know what that looks like today. But that's doing right. I think that's a great step to take. Earlier this year, Texas added some Bible stories to their elementary school curriculum. Let's get the Bible back in where it's been removed from. So I think these are all great things to take, steps to take. One more, to mention here. Florida and Texas are to allow unlicensed religious chaplains to become school counselors. So, Pastor, maybe that might be one for you. But, these are right steps to take. The wrong people can fill these spots, yes, but the right people can step up and fill these roles and pray about it and see if God would have you to do these things. If you're led to do it, hey, there's something that's for you right there, to become a school chaplain and give some sound advice to these students who are lost nowadays. So I'll close up here with a couple of statements. Just as Israel was blessed to have God's grace over them, no matter how many times they messed up, it seems like the full Bible is almost telling us about how many times Israel messed up, how many chances they got, how many times they backslid, and how many times they messed up. But God still chose to preserve them. He made a promise, and He's not going to ever release that promise. But all throughout the Bible, they've just constantly messed up, and God's helped them to get back on their feet. And these seem like they're like cheat codes. Like they got this cheat code. No matter how many times they want to mess up and do something wrong, it's like, wow, there you are again. You're prosperous, and you guys are this, that, and the other. Even though they built the high places and worship idols and done all these things, like all these verses we read. And I'll submit to you that America used to be one of these places that were prosperous, and it used to be "In God We Trust." It used to be one nation under God. It used to be the 10 Commandments in the classrooms. I could go on, but America used to be this place. King James Bible used to be, they say, in every living room in every family in the United States. The right thing was taught. The right thing was upheld. The right thing was promoted, and now that's just been totally discounted, well, almost entirely discounted. There's still the remnant that the Lord has, thank God, saved here, but you can see how we're going the way of Israel, how we're just wanting to backslide. But like I said before, America doesn't have its own special dispensation. We can reach that point where, God's just going to wipe everything out if He chooses to. We know it's going to happen one day, but if it happens before the Great Tribulation, just like World War II wasn't the end of the earth, America could, totally become a third world nation. And I don't think that, not to say that a Christian shouldn't pursue a political career. If God calls you to, and you believe that that's what God would have you to do, to, become a politician, it's a hard life, and I can't really see the system working with you to get you there. I can only see it working against you. I don't know if it might be a wise way to use your time to pursue that, but if you think that that's God's calling for you to go and a God-fearing person to go and get into a life of politics, and a Bible believer at that. If I see a Bible believer on the ballot, no mistake about it, I'm voting for you. If God would have you to do that, I believe that there's probably a point in time that there was plenty of them on the ballot. Now it's everything but the Bible believer on the ballot. It's the guy claiming to be one, and is just to get voted in, and then that's that. That's the end of that. But it's still not. It goes without saying that somebody should still try to uphold being a God-fearing individual that wants to integrate. There's a separation of church and state, but we can see some examples of some governors and some people that make lawmakers that are trying to do what's right now and trying to lead the country or their state, or they're trying. I would implore more people to do that. And one more statement to make here. As Israel had the judges, the Lord raised up judges during the book of Judges to deliver the people from the consequences of the evil doing. So the people would go and do evil. You read about it. They turned away. They forgot God. They worshiped the idols. They did this, that, and the other. And then here comes the enemy. The Philistines are going to come kill a bunch of people, capture you, and you guys are not. You guys are enslaved to them. You have the oppression of the Philistines over you. All right, now a judge comes up, beats back the Philistines, and people get right for a day, and then forget about it and go back to being crooked again. And the judges were saving the people by the shedding of this blood, by going to war and killing the Philistines. Think Samson. Samson rose up and killed hundreds and hundreds of these Philistines, and was shedding the blood of the people that were defiling the land, and they came back unto being underneath the Lord again. It's not to say that we should go around and have a committee of slaying people that we think are sodomites and this, that, and the other. That's not this, but we do have judges nowadays, and these judges can and should go to judge these matters, these cases like this, Roe v. Wade being overturned. Uphold what is right, punish the murderers, and it doesn't even have to stop at Roe v. Wade. It's not pro-life is not. It still does not make a way for unborn babies to be saved. They just regulate abortion. It's regulated. It still happens under pro-life, laws. There's some state, I forgot what it was, but they're trying to schedule, these abortion pills as a Schedule 4 drug and make it harder to obtain, and becomes punishable if you don't have the right prescription. But that still makes a way for it to happen, where you can still leave the state and go to a different state. Abolition is the way to say, hey, it ends here. There's no justifiable way to actually kill a baby. There's no justifiable murder of innocents. These judges can still uphold that today. So that's all the points I have to make here. But to close it up, I hope I made a clear case here about how the land is defiled by the sin of the people, by the sin of the sodomites, by the wickedness, by the abominations, what that does to the land. Even today we can see it to be true, how the land is wanting to vomit out its people, its inhabitants. We can see from the Lord how he made a way to go ahead and heal the land. And I think it's up to the people not to be defeated, but to hold what we have left, to get behind what some people, some lawmakers, they're trying to make a way to, stand our ground. I think we should get behind them. It's not to become political. I don't think, a Christian should be, a real political person. God's the one that's going to come one day ultimately and heal the land and fix it. But I do think that it is our obligation to go ahead and, do what is right. Doing right is, you can never go wrong with doing right. And that comes with our mandate to preach the word. And I think that's with the lack of what we have today that, the rest of the churches need to stand up and do. If you have a pride parade outside of your church, you shouldn't just, go on vacation right after church. You should go and stand against it. It's right in your backyard. You don't need to have another church have to step into the gap. There's not always going to be that other church to stand in the gap and help you. You should be in your community to stand for what's right. Let's close with prayer. Dear Lord, thank you very much for today. Thank you for helping me to preach this message today. I pray that it was pleasing to you. I pray that your people were fed through this today, Lord. I pray for us to be more courageous, more bold, to stand against what we know is wicked, to call it out with your word, Lord, to do it in a wise way, in a wise manner, as you would have it to be done. I pray that you would have us to be strengthened and not to be defeated by what we see today. I thank you, Lord, that we have still a remnant here today, Lord. I pray that you would help us to continue to be strong, Lord. Pray for the rest of the service today, the PM service. I pray that you would bless it, Lord. Pray for our fellowship now. Pray for the food. Pray that you bless in our bodies. Thank you for everybody that prepared it. Pray that you keep us all safe here. Pray that you give us travel mercies on our way out of here today. And I pray all these things in the name of Jesus Christ, the Lord. Amen.